Okay, good morning. Today is February 4th, 2025. This is a regular meeting of the Kings County Board of Supervisors. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs.
Here.
Richard Valley.
Here.
Doug Verboon.
Here.
Rusty Robinson.
Here.
Robert Thayer.
Here. Okay, all five members are present. We'll go ahead and do the invocation, but first I would like everybody to take a moment and reflect on one of our passings of our longtime employees. On Saturday evening, we had a over 20-year employee, Fire Captain Mark Eads, passed away of a heart attack. And so I'd like to have a moment of silence before we do the invocation. Okay, thank you very much. Now would you all please rise for invocation from Pastor Timothy Deacons, Grace Bible Church. Yes, sir.
Let's pray together. Father God, it is a wonderful privilege to be able to open this meeting by thinking of you. Your word tells us all good gifts come from above, coming down from the Father of lights, in whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. And that means that this meeting is possible because of you. You gave us the air in our lungs, the breath in our lungs that we can breathe with, the minds we have, the good health that we have, good enough to be here this morning. We are grateful for that. God, I just want to thank you that we have been able to begin a new year this year. I prayed during the election for a peaceful transfer of power, and we're grateful that that took place. We want to pray, as your word tells us, for those in authority, those in leadership. Pray for you to sustain their health and to give them wisdom as they seek to lead this country. I also want to pray that for all those here this morning, for the Board of Supervisors, give them the insight needed to tackle the often complex issues of the day. We pray, God, that you would help this time to be useful and to be beneficial to all the citizens of Kings County. I praise things in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Please follow me and salute our nation's flag. Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time, we'll go to unscheduled appearances. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on any items of interest within the board's jurisdiction and which are not already on the agenda. The board will not answer any questions impromptu, and concerns or complaints will be referred to appropriate staff. For items which are on the agenda, members of the public are provided with an opportunity to address the board as the item as it is brought up for discussion. Speakers are limited to their comments to not be more than 2 minutes. Thank you. Do we have anybody at speaker terms?
I have no written correspondence, but our first speaker is Sarah Hacker.
Good morning, District Attorney Hacker. How are you today?
How are you? Your Honor, Your Honors. Yes, you are honorable. Each and every.
I think she
you
forgot
are
your name.
honorable.
I don't have a robe on. Thank you.
I did send some correspondence to this board yesterday, and I'm not sure if it got into the agenda or not, but I did want to bring it to your attention, a trend that has been happening. This last week, the Hanford Police Department announced that they will be pulling out of the Major Crimes Task Force here in this county. The Major Crimes Task Force is a multi-agency task force that is dedicated to investigating particular types of crimes, usually involving large conspiracies, large criminal syndicates, and gangs. A lot of what they do is they attack narcotics sales, they attack illegal gun sales that happen in this county, as well as gang crimes that occur. It has been unwelcome news to have the Hanford Police Department remove themselves from this multi-agency task force. because this task force is dedicated to protecting all of us within the county. And let's face it, Hanford is frontline in the war against the gangs. Right now, there's a huge conflict that has been going on since 2019 between the Crip Criminal Street Gang and the Norteño Criminal Street Gang. And while a lot of what happens, or the crimes that occur in Hanford, it involves people that are outside of Hanford coming into Hanford that commit these crimes, and then people in Hanford going outside into the county to commit crimes. And what concerns the district attorney's office regarding this withdrawal is that we're not going to have that cooperation that we've once had when everybody's on the same team. We're not going to get the flow of information that we once had. Instead, we're going to have to go through bureaucracy and red tape and get supervisors' approval in order to get gang contacts and intelligence from Hanford Police Department. And while this may be a city decision to pull out of the Major Crimes Task Force, it has absolute 100% serious ramifications for the county. Because ultimately, if the city of Hanford is not going to participate in attacking gang crimes, then ultimately it's going to be the county that fills in that role. A perfect example of how the county took over and moved into the role of taking care of the entire county, including the city, was Operation Royal Flush. This was a gang wiretap that had occurred between September of 2024 through November of 2024. Ultimately, there were approximately 70 suspects that were arrested throughout the county. There were 3 homicides that were solved, 17 homicide suspects that were arrested. In preparation for this wiretap, the Kings County Major Crimes Task Force went to all of the jurisdictions and asked, do we have unsolved crimes? Of the unsolved crimes that were submitted to be solved with this wiretap operation, not a single one of them was from Hanford, even though there has been unsolved crimes. Additionally, there were 58 locations that were targeted on takedown day with suspects that were believed to be at that location. 12 of those locations were located in the city of Hanford. Hanford Police Department only took 2 of those 12 locations. The rest of the 10 were delegated to the Major Crimes Task Force, either handling those locations themselves or finding somebody outside of our jurisdiction to assist us with the SWAT takedowns. Also, during Operation Royal Flush, there was not a Hanford Police Department representative that was in the wire room assisting us with gathering and collecting information. That task fell to the Major Crimes Task Force, the California Department of Justice, to take on that role. And it was the county that paid for the overtime and the salaries of those people, which, don't get me wrong, it was an excellent investment and it was a wonderful outcome. But this is a situation where the county is now going to be stepping into the responsibility of having to take on frontline gang activity because the city of Hanford is pulling away. I also mentioned that there are gang members that come into Hanford that commit gang crimes and then leave Hanford. Also, Hanford gang members that come into the county to commit gang crimes and then leave and go back to Hanford. If we don't have the cooperation that we've had in the past, it will make it so much more difficult to investigate and prosecute these crimes because we don't have that free flow of information. We don't have that direct contact. And I would provide a few examples of how gang members will move in and out of jurisdictions in committing gang crimes. October 15th, 2020, Jesse Santillana and Jose Galvan. Jose Galvan is a Kettleman City Norteño. He went into Hanford wearing red and posted himself at Co Park, which is Crip gang territory. They call that flaming out. They did it as a challenge. They did it to hunt Crip criminal street gang members in Hanford. There was a Hanford police officer that did see Jesse Santillana and Jose Galvan flamed out at Co Park. They tried to initiate police contact. They got in their car and they fled. There was a felony evasion that took place from the city of Hanford. The city of Hanford discontinued the pursuit. The Kings County Sheriff's Department picked up the pursuit and ultimately was able to arrest both Jose Galvan and Jesse Santillana, and there was a loaded firearm in the vehicle. Another example is the Thanksgiving weekend of November 26, 2022. LaTuan Love, a well-known, well-respected criminal street gang member, was in Home Gardens County area. It is believed that a person by the name of Elijah Garcia, who is a Southside Loc, a gang from Hanford, Norteño gang from Hanford, went into Home Gardens and shot LaTuan Love. The very next day, Luis Garcia, who is a Hanford gangster Crip, shot Eulio Castillo in Hanford in retaliation for their homie being shot in Home Garden. The day after that, November 28th, it is believed that unknown Crip criminal street gang members shot at a northerner in Armona. December 5th, 2022, Jacob Campa, a northerner from Lemoore, went to Hanford with drugs in his car. It is believed that he was intending to sell those drugs. The Kings County Sheriff's Department attempted to contact Mr. Jacob Campa in his vehicle, and they initiated a pursuit. That pursuit ended up going into unincorporated county areas where Mr. Campa and the person he was with had drove a vehicle at one of our deputies as an assault. So this is the tangled web that is gang violence. It's not Hanford gang members committing crimes in Hanford, county gang members committing crimes in the county, Armona gang members committing crimes in Armona. These are people that are going throughout the entire county committing crimes, and we have to have cooperation amongst law enforcement officers so that we can effectively deal with this threat to our public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. I
Super.
know this is important for all of us. Public safety is key, and communication is key. So maybe we should do a study session involving the city of Hanford to find out what they need to bring us back together and find resolution. So look forward to our staff working with you and I believe the sheriff's staff to come together with some kind of an idea of what we can do to make this happen or continue to work together.
I appreciate the invitation for a study session, and I look forward to arranging that.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Chairman Valley.
Madam Diet, thank you for the email. I did read it last night. If you called a week ago, I think you may have called. If I didn't return the call, apologize. But reading that last night, two things come to mind, which is one, not knowing the background, not knowing if there was negotiations going on, not knowing if the city of Hanford was asking for something that the county wasn't willing to give. I don't know if it's political. I don't know what the politics would be, but my first thought was, well, I'm not going to interfere between law enforcement agencies and tell them how to do their job. If this is a better model, then that's probably why Hanford made the decision, or maybe it's not a better model. But that being said, I do believe that one, we should agendize, as the chairman said, but not a study session, but an action item where maybe you could work with those county officials that are interested to put language together in a letter that either offers what the county can do to bring them back to the table, or just give us more information on what the background is to fix it, and maybe make up the language of the letter so we can take action that day to send a letter immediately to the city of Hanford. But the agendized option either way gives us an opportunity to have a further in-depth conversation with the district attorney and possibly the sheriff. But you're right with everything that you said on the retaliation and just a little that I know and what gets shared. There's absolutely retaliation going on back and forth from Hanford to Corcoran and Corcoran to Hanford. And as well in Avenel. And I know with Operation Royal Flush, the 3 murders that you commented on, I think all were from District 2. And so thank you for getting those bad guys off the street with all the agencies that you work with. But absolutely, I'm interested in finding out how the county can be helpful if in fact the sheriff wants them back at the table as well. I don't know that. I don't know what the politics are, but going off everything you said in the email and what you just said at the podium, then I believe we need to get more informed and see what the county can do as a whole to help out to bring them back to the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you. I understand that, city politics may not necessarily be county politics, but I'm glad I came before this board because both of the suggestions that were offered are very good suggestions that I may not have come up with. And I'm glad to hear that this board is receptive to addressing some of the issues that have been going on.
Just one real quick comment. I would just suggest from the passage of Measure H that the voters in the city of Hanford that are in that jurisdictional boundaries have big expectations for public safety because they overwhelmingly supported this. I mean, it's a general tax measure, but their city council has indicated that the lion's share of that tax increase is going to fund positions within the police department. And I just find it absolutely shocking. I think most voters, I'd probably by show of hands in here, if you voted for it, you'd probably be a little bit disappointed to hear this. And I can tell you, and I know we talked on the phone, thank you for the phone call. From my position as the undersheriff for many, many years, that this is, it's shocking. It scares me. The community should be worried about this. These are not games that you take your soccer ball and go home with. And I don't know, I'm not trying to make it sound petty, but it makes zero sense to me that a law enforcement official would walk away from this task force, especially when the lion's share of it is funded by this board through the sheriff's office and the number of deputies that we have in task forces that I don't even know if our community knows, but we've got them in FBI and DEA and Tulare. We have people assigned to all sorts of to task forces because the reality of public safety, this layer, doesn't operate on traffic stops at 12th and Lacey. It's the underground. It's the criminal street gang is what really impacts violent crime, and to walk away from it is just absolutely appalling. So whatever I can do to help, I have tried to reach out to a couple of council members and I haven't received phone calls back yet, but we'll readily advocate for that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, staff was able to locate the letter and make it part of the record, and the board was notified.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank
The
you.
next speaker is Rachel Clement.
Morning, Rachel. Rachel's here on behalf of Congressman Valdez and to present a resolution or proclamation.
Yeah, so good morning, Chairman and the board. On behalf of Congressman David Valadeo, California's 22nd Congressional District, I would like to present the Kings County Board of Supervisors a certificate of congressional recognition that reads, "In recognition of your support to Kings County, we honor your steadfast commitment towards strengthening our community and recognizing the priority of awareness for national slavery and human trafficking. I would like to congratulate you on proclaiming January 2025 as National Slavery and Human Trafficking Awareness Month in Kings County." Thank you. If you'd like. No. Yeah. Doug always jokes with me. I purposely don't wear my boots on Tuesdays because I always tell him I don't want to be taller than him. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it.
1, 2, 3, Kings County.
Victor Stafford here from Lisbon Health Office.
Hello, Chairman and Vice Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors. Again, we're also presenting a certificate as well, and it reads, "In honor of your commitment to our community by recognizing National Slavery and Human Trafficking Awareness Month, your dedication to raising awareness about this critical issue is vital in the fight against modern slavery and human trafficking. By shining a light on this often hidden crime, you are empowering our community to recognize the signs, support of survivors, and work towards prevention. Please accept my appreciation from your service and dedication to the residents of Kings County. Thank you."
Our next speaker is Alvaro Preciado.
Uh, Good morning, Chairperson, Supervisors, County staff, and also members of the public. It is with a heavy heart that I stand before you today to honor the life and service of Captain Marquez, a man whose dedication to Kings County and the city of Avenal left an indelible mark on all of us. Over the past 4 years, I have the privilege of getting to know Captain personally. He wasn't just a firefighter or a captain. He was a great man, always upbeat, and someone who genuinely loved our small community of Avenal, tight-knit community. Also, I would like to remark that Mark often shared how Avenal felt like home to him. Whether in uniform or off-duty, he made it clear that serving and protecting a resident wasn't just a job, it was his passion. In the last year alone, Captain Eads became a familiar face at every community event. He never missed our block parties, and he also was a proud supporter at the Pistachio Festival and stood alongside us during the suicide prevention walk. His dedication went beyond emergency calls. He showed up for the people of Avenal in every way that mattered. His passing leaves a profound void in Avenal. Many residents who knew him personally are heartbroken by his loss. He wasn't just someone who showed up in times of crisis. He was someone who celebrated with us, grieved with us, stood shoulder to shoulder with us in building a stronger Avenal. To Captain, his family and friends and county fire department, his colleagues, we extend our deepest condolences from the city of Avenal, the community, our city staff, our city council, and we have also lowered our flags to have mass in his honor, and we stand ready to support Station 12 and the entire department in every way we can. Mr. East's legacy will live on the hearts of those he served, those he protected, and those who had the privilege of knowing him. He would be remembered not only for his bravery and dedication, but for his warm kindness and unwavering service commitment to the community of Avenal. And as the mayor of Avenal, and on behalf of our community, we want to thank his family, the county, and friends, for his service to our small but great city at heart. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mayor
And
Preciado.
Chief Velasco, I don't know if you have to say something.
Good morning.
Good morning. I had only met Captain Eads for a short period of time. I've only been there for about a year, but during that time, I had the honor to share several conversations with him, and most recently at the suicide prevention walk, where we spent most of the evening together talking. And like the mayor's expressed, the only thing I can recall from that conversation is him just speaking passionately about how dedicated he was to the community of Avenal and how he loved working there, how he had other opportunities to go work elsewhere, but he had decided to stay there because he just felt in love with the community. And, we truly appreciate his service to the community, his dedication, and his legacy will never be forgotten. He was a very kind man. All I can remember from those conversations I had with him was just a nice smile with the raspy voice and that laughter. And I want to express on behalf of the Avenal Police Department, our deepest condolences to his family, to his colleagues, and to the Kings County Fire Department. And our prayers are with them.
Thank you, Chief.
That's all that I'm aware of. It doesn't appear anyone online has their hand raised.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody in the audience have anything they'd like to add to today?
Mr. Chairman, just very quickly, I want to thank the mayor and thank the chief for making the drive this morning here to the county. The mayor and I were on the phone over the weekend, discussing the tragedy. And even on social media, you see a lot of the community members from Avenel who were brokenhearted and expressing nothing but kind words for the gentleman. So all that reflected, the comments from the community reflect everything the mayor and the chief just said, for someone who was obviously a part of the community of Avenel. And so I also joined the county and the city of Avenel in the morning and expressing the gratitude for the captain's service. So thank you again for coming out.
Thank you. If there's no more comments, we'll move on now to approval of the minutes. Item 3A, a report out of closed session from the regular meeting on January 28th, 2025.
There's nothing to report out of closed session.
Okay, thank you. Item B, approval of the minutes from regular meeting, January 28th, 2025, moved by Supervisor Robinson, second by Supervisor Neves. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
All right.
Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson. Robert Thayer.
Yes.
I'm in favor. Passes. Item 4, consent counter. All items listed on consent counter are considered routine and will be acted by one motion. If a board member has questions, requests additional information, or wishes to comment on an item, the vote should not be taken until after questions have been addressed or comments made. And the public has an opportunity to comment and on the consent counter as well. Any motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't need to pull it, but could I get someone to answer a question in regards to item D, 1A, Human Services Agency, on the purchase of the 3 sedans from Toyota Clovis? Is anyone here?
We do, yeah. Wendy? Morning, Wendy.
Morning. Thank you. Just reading the background and probably just for clarification for the board and for the public, where you're going with the bid of Clovis, buying these 3 vehicles from Clovis versus the bid that came in from Toyota Hanford, and with the difference of being $1,532 where Clovis beat that bid. But I'm assuming it's because of a certain date you have to meet to use the monies, because obviously based on our Kings County local vendor preference and the way that ordinance exists today, that even though Clovis was a lower bid under that ordinance, the Kings County Hanford dealership would have received the winning bid and the money would have been spent here. So can you clarify that?
I might need to double check with my staff that we're in the more detailed bidding process, but there is a time issue. We did budget this for this year. We didn't make the purchase, even though it was approved in this year's budget in the summer, because we were wanting to make sure we could afford it, quite frankly, knowing that there were negotiations and things happening throughout the year. Ordering them now, one factor we are looking at is who can deliver before June 30th, because we do need to be able to pay the bill and have them delivered before the end of this fiscal year. I'd have to follow up and get additional information.
Yeah. Let's get
There
some
they are.
from
Kelly, do you have any additional information on that?
I'm Kelly Luna, Program Manager for Wendy with Human Services. And that was the reason we went with Clovis, was because Clovis was able to deliver in 45 calendar days, and Freeway Toyota of Hanford had 180 to 220 days. And when we went out to bid, the bid said that we needed them before June 30th of 2025.
There's language that states that.
In the bid,
Okay.
correct. When we went to RFP.
But what about attached to the money? You're using grant money to?
No, we're using this year's 24-25 budget, and that's
Okay,
what got
fair.
approved by the county board.
Okay, so
If we
there's
don't spend it this year, then we would have to get new approval from you next fiscal year. We wouldn't be able to make any purchases. One of the things we try to do, we have a very large fleet, and we try to just maintain our budget, purchase a small amount of vehicles every year. Otherwise, it kind of builds up, and then we have to do a purchase of 10 or 15 vehicles. So we try to purchase a few each year to keep, refresh our fleet, turn over older vehicles. That would put us in a position where we'd have much higher expenditures next year that we potentially couldn't afford.
Are you, I'm surprised that the Toyota can't trade within another Toyota dealership to get you these vehicles. I would feel better, Mr. Chairman. I know it's not a big deal in the scope of things, but that ordinance exists for a reason, to keep our dollars here in the county of Kings. And I would feel better doing this if there was an email from Toyota dealership Hanford that said, look, we can't get these vehicles, or something written from them that expresses something otherwise, because the dealerships trade within each other, especially coming out of the pandemic. Everyone's got a low inventory, but they trade across the state. And I mean, 3 sedans for a county, and we're probably not talking anything that's luxury or everyone is trying to get their hands on. So I'd imagine that these vehicles would be available some way for this dealer to trade. I'd like to give them a chance, an opportunity.
Well, I appreciate that. I understand, the priority. They had the opportunity when they responded to the bid, and they told us what they were able to do, and we made a decision accordingly. I am worried that we'll lose the quote on the current bid that we have. We don't have another board date till late in February, and that could jeopardize our ability to get them from Clovis in a timely manner. But it's your board's discretion what you'd like us to do in terms of following up on this item. And we can go ask them for more clarification if they're sure that they can't. But they did respond with what they felt they were able to do.
We don't need facility actually perhaps the next 3 weeks. Okay.
I know Freeway Total is not locally owned. It's not like Richard Chevrolet where they live here and it's their own money. Freeways all over the United States. And they can't trade unless they have a vehicle like kind to trade with. And I purchased a truck from Michael Chevrolet by trying to get it from Richards. Richard had nothing to trade for. So you have to, if you're in the market and you got to buy it, you have to take
the truck you're trying to get there is 5-star. And so everybody wants that, and dealers aren't going to trade, but economy sedans. That being said, the jobs are local, though. I'd imagine. I know some folks that work at Toyota here in Hanford. But look, I'm going to push back, but please get some information, work with purchasing on the local vendor preference policy, because they get, I think they get a 10% difference in the bids as well. So in this case, where let's say it was even Steven and the vehicles were here. Just because Clovis had the lowest bid of $1,532 difference under that, our existing ordinance that's been here since 2009, that Kings County would be the one selling these vehicles. So, all right.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll pull off.
Thanks, sir. Robinson.
Wendy, I have one more question. So was the bid just in scope for Toyota, or is that just who was?
I think it was in scope for
It
Toyota.
was in scope for Toyota. We worked with Mel and Evan on getting the bid out to the
It
public.
was so narrow in scope. Why wasn't it just broad and put out to everybody?
Well, there's been a couple things, and it may be that Public Works can speak to this. We've tried, for just maintenance, we try not to have too much diversity in our fleet, because then you're having to deal with different parts and, so if we've tried to replace what we've been using with the same type of vehicle. So we've only have a limited number of different types of vehicles out there. We typically purchase the same van type. We have changed, there have been times we've changed. But that's been the general process that we followed, and we do coordinate all of this with purchasing and Public Works.
I only bring that up because if it was broader in scope, there's a fair chance that we could have found somebody.
Honda, yes, understood.
Okay, any further questions? Do I have a motion?
So movement, Chair.
By the Neves, second by Supervisor Valley. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley. Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson. Robert Thayer.
Yes.
5 in favor. We'll move on now to item 5, which is regular consent calendar, Community Development Agency, and we have Mr. Chuck Kinney. Morning, Chuck.
Morning.
How are you today?
Doing well. So I've come before you this morning to report out last night's Planning Commission agenda or what decisions. And last night they had one item of business for consideration. It was a little bit familiar to them because they previously approved the project in 21, but that project had since expired. And so it was coming back. It's conditional use permit 2404 for Pittman Family Farms, which is proposing to expand a poultry farm located at 16445 Laurel Avenue in Stratford. And the expansion proposes to increase the number of chickens to be raised from approximately 250,000 to 1.7 million at a time at the existing Huffman Ranch. It also included some incidental buildings to make that possible. The Planning Commission did approve the project unanimously, 5-0, and there were no comments other than positive comments from the public.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
So I want to say, and Mr. Mayor, I want you to know that our appointment to the Planning Commission for District 2 is a young gentleman out of Avenel. So if you didn't know that, get with Anthony, because I reached out to Anthony to recommend somebody so Avenel could have representation on that county Planning Commission.
Move to accept.
Motion by Supervisor Knapp, second by Valley. Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley, Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Rusty Robinson, Robert Thayer.
Yes.
In favor, thank you very much. Public Works Department, item B, Mitchell Cabrera. Good morning, Mitchell.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mitchell Cabrera, Chief Engineer with the Public Works Department. Before your board this morning with a request to approve a consultant agreement with Darden Architects Incorporated for the preparation of the plan specification and estimate package for what we're calling the Kings County Government Center Courthouse Remodel Project. As you recall, in 2008, Senate Bill 1407 was enacted, and that resulted in 2016, the new courthouses that were built here in town, replacing the existing buildings that are here at the Government Center. With that relocation of the state courthouses, approximately 60,000 square feet of the three adjacent buildings known as the court buildings were reverted back ownership to the county. These buildings have remained in their previous state. So the courtrooms, jury rooms, everything that was needed for the buildings to operate as a courtroom are still there. The purpose of this project is to modernize, remodel that approximately 60,000 square feet for usable office space for different county departments that would essentially fill in those locations. The contract amount is, and as noted on the fiscal impact, is $3,080,000. $2,380,000 is anticipated to be used in fiscal year 24-25, and that covers the main design and project development. There is a typo on the fiscal impact on the agenda item. It shows $7 million for fiscal year 2025-26. That should actually be $700,000. That covers assistance during the bidding phase and construction phase for any questions the contractors may have. The architect will be on board to provide support to county staff for that. So the department's recommendation is to approve the agreement with Darden Architects for the preparation of the plans, specs, and estimates. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Very good. Any questions from the board?
I would just say if we have the ability right now to just let the public know a little bit about what the plans would be with the use of that courthouse.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I could speak a little bit about that. So we are anticipating moving initially public health into the courthouses, and then from there we would see what space we have remaining to move some other county departments into that. We haven't finalized which county departments would be going in that phase. It really is going to be the priority is going to be moving public health so we can get them into that building.
Just real quick, is that capital projects? Is that what that budget unit is?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
Mitchell, do we have the architects here?
I had reached out. I don't know if they made it. Okay.
They are. Okay.
Yes.
They raise simultaneously.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, if you have any questions, Darden.
Architects have anything they'd like to add to it, or looking forward to working with us?
Yeah.
No change orders.
I don't know if I don't know if I can promise that. I wish I could, but no, we're here. It's Justo Padron and myself. Grant Dodson is the other person that was at the interview. He unfortunately has a doctor's appointment, so apologize he can't be here. But just want to say we are just very, very thankful that we were selected, and we very much look forward to working with you guys. So just thank you. So,
Very good. Appreciate that. And no change orders.
well, that was right.
Some will find in that structure, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So if we have no questions from the board and no question from the audience, I'll bring it back to the board for decision.
So move.
Moved by Supervisor Neves, second by Supervisor Robinson. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Rusty Robinson. Robert Thayer.
Yes.
I will stay in favor. Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you guys every day.
Thank you.
I didn't know you guys designed breweries. The Brew Fest. Moving right along. Wrong courthouse.
At this time, we're going to go to item number 6, study session, and we have Alex Walker from administration. Morning, Alex.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Alex Walker, Administrative Analyst for the County of Kings Administration. This morning, I'll be presenting the study session for the Kings County 2025 state and federal legislative platform. These topics have incredible importance to the county. As part of the process, administration, alongside our state lobbyist firm, Shaw, Yoder, Antwi, Schmelzer, and Lang, our federal lobbyist firm, Paragon Government Relations, met with department heads throughout November 2024 to January of this year to get a better understanding of their legislative priorities and updates to the previous legislative platform. As part of this, we'll be presenting this for your review today as a study session item and bring in the final item for adoption on the 25th. Both federal lobbyists and state lobbyists are available on WebEx, and myself and staff will be available for questions at the end. I'll give you a fair warning. It's a little bit of a condensed presentation, but we'll be more than happy to answer questions throughout or at the end. Moving on to the next slide, please. We'll start with the state legislative priorities. Currently, we have identified 5 top priorities. The first 4 are reflected from last year's study set, from last year's legislative platform, and then with a new 5th item. Starting with water, natural resources, and agriculture, this area continues to remain an area of high importance for the county, despite recent rain in recent years. Under this section, the language mostly stayed the same from the 2024 platform. However, a focus on combating invasive pests and diseases was added, in addition to a section outlining the need for stability of the unclaimed gas tax mandates that are impacting county roads. On the unfunded mandates piece, on the second priority, this item was a topic of much discussion throughout various department head meetings, recurring in nearly all conversations with departments. The concern is that possible unfunded mandates to the county will impact our revenue streams and our inability to keep up with mandates from the state. The third and fourth priorities, respectively, were homelessness and high-speed rail. These 2 continue to be priorities for the county as the 2 carry their own unique challenges. The key being to finish high-speed rail construction in the county so we can reopen our roads for the public, and on homelessness to secure additional funding through various means such as programs, shelters, and more. Closing out the top 5, broadband was added as our newest and 5th priority to ensure legislative support for the completion of Kings County broadband projects and to meet continued needs. Moving on to the next slide, please. We can move into the legislative platform for the state side further. Again, starting with water and natural resources, we added new language to support the use of NASA's use of surface, water, and ocean topography, which is known as SWOT. These efforts provide needed information in assessing California's water supply. We also added new language to support the metering of ag wells, exempting domestic wells, to better assess Kings County's water usage. We added new language to support the biological opinions developed under the Trump administration for the Delta, to increase water delivery south of the Delta to Valley farmers, and decrease the flow of California's limited freshwater supply sent into Pacific Ocean. Furthermore, language was added to support legislation that curtails the marketing and sale of agricultural water for residential use, and in turn, supporting that water in Kings County is best used for agricultural production. Furthermore, and lastly, the platform reflected new added language to support legislation that provides for transparency of domestic and foreign ownership of agricultural land to better protect the water supply. On the probation side, we removed outdated language throughout, added new language to support increased funding through various existing new state platforms. Specifically, the platform calls for increased and stabilized funding from 2011 realignment, better known as AB 109, and support for SB 823, which is the juvenile justice realignment under 2020 funding. We also, on the probation piece, added new language to support funding that derives from the mandates resulting from the passage of Prop 36 in California to ensure its successful implementation and meet the needs of the community. Moving on to the library space, again, similarly, we updated the outdated language throughout, adding new language to support the restoration of funding to crucial e-resources such as Jobs Now, Vet Now, and Help Now. We added new language to support the funding to implement SB 321, which mandates that public libraries issue a student success card to all third graders by January 1st, 2026. On the library space as well, we added new language that reflects the need for ADA improvements across county library facilities. On the elections piece, preserve support for legislation that will fund election infrastructure and enable an adequate compliance of current and state and federal codes, incorporated new language to oppose unfunded mandates, as well as included language to support legislation that will allow the county to bill both the state and federal government for the administration of their elections, as well as adding new language to support modifications to AB 1450, assisting counties with modifying existing law as it pertains to the current Voters' Choice Act, also known as the VCA Code. This will allow counties flexibility to implement an election model that is beneficial to the respective county. And on the human resources side, we added language that will support legislation that will give counties flexibility in obtaining proper workforce resources and providing services to the community, as well as opposing legislation that would limit the county's ability to use contract workforces when traditional in-house workforces are insufficient, hard to hire, or not available in the area in order to provide critical services in the community. It should be noted that there has been an amendment made to the HR section for both the state and federal platform. Starting on the state side, the current language reads, oppose unfunded mandates that cause undue strains on human resources departments in ways of reporting, records retention, and PRAs. The revised language that will be brought to your board on the 25th shall read, oppose unfunded mandates that cause undue strains on human resource departments in the ways of reporting, record keeping, overly complex or burdensome compliance requirements, records retention, and California Public Records Act CPRA requests. This language was modified to better clarify the county's position, as well as provide better flexibility for our lobbyists to advocate on our behalf. And I'll review the federal language when we get to the federal side. Moving on to the next slide, please. Examining state legislative priorities further. On the public health piece, the section continued to advocate that local health departments have sufficient funding to carry out emerging infectious diseases identification, prevention, and response, addressing overall health disparities, and any mandates required by the state come with sufficient funding. This year, the platform included language on supporting funding and legislation that protects maternal health, creating accessible and affordable maternal health services, which have been historically underfunded in the county. The platform also added language to prioritize valley fever research, treatment, and vaccine development. And then finally, the platform reflects supportive language to protect state versions of Medicare, Medicaid, and ACA-funded programs that county residents rely on. On the behavioral health side, we removed sections regarding pretrial mental health diversion, supportive housing, telemedicine, and suicide prevention due to recent progress and changes in county needs. The platform maintained an updated language on California's SB 43 law, which revised the state's involuntary detention and conservatorship laws under the LPS Act, known as the Lanterman-Petra-Short Act, in a matter that may significantly increase the number of individuals who can be placed on involuntary detention and or be petitioned for conservatorship. The increase is expected to impact county councils, public guardian offices, as well as county behavioral health departments. This year, the platform added various sections affirming the need to expand Medi-Cal reimbursement to meet the county's needs in outreach and treatment for those experiencing a mental illness. Similarly, the state platform is also encouraging that institutions for mental disease, known as IMDs, reimbursement limitations be revised so that the county can more meaningfully and solvently provide beds for those in crisis. With homelessness being a top priority for the county, behavioral health section also included language for low barrier shelters and navigation centers known as LBNCs to address the county's homelessness population. Investing in LBNCs can lead to significant cost savings by reducing expensive emergency room visits, law enforcement interactions, as well as lowering the burden on criminal justice system while overall preventing more costly interventions down the line. The platform also included language around Prop 1, encouraging county-based population prevention strategies for a robust behavioral health system in Kings County. On the sheriff's side, under public safety, taking note of the passage of Prop 36 and its anticipated impacts, the platform also removed language on previous funding priorities and added language to support funding for local impacts on Proposition 36, which is anticipated to increase the local jail populations, causing further strains on our existing system without any additional resources from the state. This section further continued to allow communications with federal partners on the immigration statuses of persons encountered who may be from terrorist countries or on states from a list identified by the State Department as a terrorist organization, as well as adding language to support funding to establish a cross-jurisdictional database to monitor homelessness and reduce redundancies in services, improving resource management and effective service delivery. The next slide, please.
See, Mr. Chairman, just real quick, as I'm reading along, is you're highlighting priorities, especially from departments. This is everything that was approved by department heads prior to going on here. There's no department head sitting in the audience that will read this or hear something today and be surprised.
Thank you for your question, Supervisor Valley. The department heads, before this item was agendized, had the opportunity to comment. This was also reviewed by administration as well as our lobbyist team.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Continuing on with the state legislative priorities, on the district attorney's side, we added language to further support rural crime funding, allocations from the Violence Against Women Act and the Violence of Crime Act, as well as elder abuse. On the fire side, we added new language that specifically calls for funding for the establishment of a new fire headquarters, modernization of communication services, and funding for fire equipment. On the child support services piece, added language to support efforts that facilitate family access and program services, removing barriers to access and easing administrative burdens while preserving local control and local support agencies' ability to utilize effective, equitable, and flexible collection tools and methods. On the piece of economic development, the platform added language to support legislation that provides consistent, sustainable funding to local workforce and economic development offices to meet the demands for high-demand jobs in key industries such as healthcare, social work, food processing, manufacturing, warehousing, and others, while also preserving local control and being able to utilize funding that best meets local needs. On the information technology side of things, we added language to support legislation that provides broadband infrastructure and improvements as well as construction, reflecting a county priority that was added this year. Adding language to oppose legislation that leaves underserved people without vital communication services, such as local telephone services, and that relieves carriers of their responsibility to provide such a critical and fundamental service, as well as adding language to oppose PRA efforts in the technology space, particularly requests for agencies to report their systems, which can then be used by hackers to access the county's internal network. And unauthorized access to systems continues to have devastating impacts, and support for technology security funding has been added as well. Moving on to the Veteran Services side, we added new language to support legislation requiring U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs accreditation in order for individuals or organizations to represent veterans in the benefits claims process. Moving on to the next slide, please. We will now jump into the federal legislative priorities.
Alex?
Yes, sir.
Can we discuss the state one before federal?
Of course.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on the state?
Yes. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Supervisor.
No, I was just going to comment on that. When you brought up the piece about the sheriff and the immigration status, I saw some stuff floating on social media this morning that there were some just comments, and I don't know who they're coming from, and I don't know whether they're true or not, and they're talking about immigration raids and hitting these targeted community health centers, in Fresno County, and they didn't really mention Kings County. But that immigration status thing, we are seeing the ramifications of this, whether you like that the state of California is a sanctuary state or not. This is the ramification, is that the cops in the back of this room, in the sheriff's office, your local police departments, Avenue Police Department, all law enforcement, we know who these criminals are and could easily hand them over. And we've been able to do that for years in our jail facilities. And now the state said we can't do that anymore. And we're not doing that anymore. And hence this is the consequence, where we've got members in our community who are scared to death, who aren't going to school, who aren't going to public health facilities out of fear of being rounded up by the federal government. And to me, it's just a plea back to the state of California to let law enforcement cooperate like we did for 30 years and without issues. I've never been a part of a raid where we jumped out of vans and ran through lettuce fields, hooking up illegal immigrants that came into the state. We just don't do that, and I've never seen it done. But the policy that took place in Sacramento that slammed that door and made California a sanctuary state is now our immigrant communities are sadly seeing the consequences of this. That the good guys wear patches and badges are really not in a position to really help in that sense, if that makes kind of sense. And so I just wanted to point that out to the audience members here and whoever's listening online, that this is an important piece that needs to be corrected. Needs to be corrected immediately.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Thanks, Supervisor Valley.
Supervisor, Thayer, where do you see the headline on immigration? Because
It was on his slide right here.
It's on the slide. I'm not seeing it in the table of contents.
Supervisor Valley, if I may, this was regarding one of the sheriff priorities. This is specifically to allow law enforcement partners to collaborate with law enforcement and federal partners on those who are from terrorist countries or states in a list identified by the State Department. This is not in conflict with existing federal or state law.
And I believe, in speaking with the sheriff, that was actually a bill, right? That was already drafted, sent through, and didn't even make it out of committee. And we should get a voting roster and see how our local representatives, if any, were on that committee where that bill died. Because that's actually, without reading that bill, but talking to the sheriff and hearing some of the frustrations of law enforcement, that I believe that's something that should be addressed and should be weighed on by the counties. But also, I believe, Mr. Chairman, that in light of what's going on, and I know at the time maybe it wasn't such highlighted when this was getting drafted together, but I think it's time that the county should voice an opinion and put in a priority on what's going on as it relates under the heading of immigration. And I'm not talking political. I'm not talking pro-Dem, pro-anti-Republican or either way. But I believe the county needs to have a unified approach to this between law enforcement, the growers, the Farm Bureau, labor unions, and county electeds, that we should be speaking on some kind of unified approach to this. So, and we touched briefly on this, and I'm glad today's just study session because there's a lot to read here, but we do hint around, and we even talk about farm workers underwater, at least on the federal side that I started reading under. But that being said, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we modify, if you look to page 7, and this is under water and natural resources agriculture. On page 7, halfway through, I would assume the language that's in here that's in red, that's new language, right, young man?
That is correct, sir. Those are revisions that have been made.
So when you talk about water and the Delta this new language says, in contrast, support the biological opinions developed under President Trump for the Delta, which would decrease the amount of water sent through the Delta into the Pacific Ocean and increase water deliveries south of the Delta to Valley Farms. And I believe that we should keep that language the way that it's always been and the way that community development does a good job when they talk about water on page, let's see. Community development seems to keep the way we always have. And I believe that. So I believe that we should edit that to just keep it simple, that the county supports legislation that increases water delivery south of the Delta to Valley Farmers. And I don't believe that the county should express in our priority legislative platforms that we're just going to give a blank check to President Trump on as it relates to water and actions he's taken. And I'm not saying that as being anti-President Trump. I'm saying that from the standpoint that we don't know what's going to happen. And that even the recent release of waters that were ordered by President Trump over the weekend, even listening to KMJ yesterday, those conservative talk show radio hosts, they can't figure out if that's a good move yet or not. And you're having growers, you're having farmers in the San Joaquin Valley who are expressing different opinions on that, whether that was given them. And so, and I'm not saying it wasn't good. I'm saying we need time to figure that out. But I don't believe that a blank check of approval of President Trump's ideas on water should be in the legislative platform. So we could simply remove that. And if a board member wanted that expressed by the county, then they can work with the CAO to develop language and put a resolution on agenda for a vote. But I would like to keep that simple, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Keep that in general. Also, I have one more. On elections, I just wanted to make sure that Mr. Villa, you support everything that is under elections and what was stricken out of elections.
No, it's that which I provided to both
Okay.
admin and.
Okay. And that's all for right now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. When it
Thank you,
comes to
sir.
the President Trump biological opinion, we've supported that for years. We supported it when President Obama started it. And we supported it in 2018 when President Trump initiated it and got it turned back and sped it up a little bit. And we still supported it when Biden shut it down. So we're really back where we were 5 years ago right now. And what happened on 3 o'clock on Thursday afternoon is really needs to be figured out who made that call and who made the decision to drain the lake that that water didn't go to LA. So it could have been a retaliatory against the Trump administration. It could have been a simple mistake. It could have been an overzealous person in the Army Corps. It could have been directed from somebody else. Until we have that, we don't know anything. But we got it shut down by Saturday at noon. We were done. It didn't really hurt anybody, and we were able to capture the water, put it in the reservoirs, take credit for the water farmers in those areas. Also, I'd like to thank Alex for taking time out and spending a couple hours with each one of us to get our decisions down on paper and doing that. I hope everybody here participated. I've been doing a lot of meetings with all the committees I'm on. One thing is that didn't exist when we had our meetings with the lobbyists was the anti-Trump movement from our legislation in California. So people are talking about, we got to stop what he wants to do. But, as a 32-year elected official, I've worked with multiple administrations, and I always honor the elected office. When Obama was in office, I respected his position. We worked with him. We learned how to work with his staff. We did very well with it. When Biden was in office, I made trips to DC and changed my attitudes, changed my tone, got money for the county with his staff. Great working relationship. I don't like the adversity that we have to go against something. We don't know what it's going to be like yet. I think we need to respect the office of the presidency and not fight it. I don't see that happening here in our town, but I see it happening on the outskirts. I watched a meeting in Antioch yesterday because I'm on the chairman at Amtrak. We're taking their station out, and it was all about fighting, new rules from our president. So I think we need to learn how to work with the Office of Presidency and move forward. And I know we worked 2 weeks ago, I think Supervisor Thayer and myself went to Merced, met with a regional area conference committee members to start talking about, how to protect our county's interest and do what's right for the constituents. So I don't know if that's something we can do here. I know I can talk about it for myself when I go to DC or Sacramento, but is Paul Yoder or is he online today?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Paul Yoder is on the WebEx. Paul, can you hear us?
I can. Good morning.
So I don't know if you can answer that question, but is there anything we can do to to show support to whoever's in office and learn how to work with them into the next 4 years without having somebody go against us? Is there anything we can do to protect ourselves with that? I know there's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of social media. You can create your own news network and get information out. As far as we know, it's life as usual here in Kings County. No matter how things change, they seem to always stay the same. So I just want to make sure that there's something we're not missing here.
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. I think your federal advocate may want to weigh in as well, but to me, the key is exactly what you're doing today is grounding anything you might put out in writing or anything you might say on behalf of the county, grounding it in public policy, in sound policy that has been developed locally. I think when you're stating the facts, I don't think Governor Newsom or President Trump or any other elected official with whom you might try to communicate, they can obviously object to factual statements, but those factual statements are still going to stand, and you're going to be able to stand by them.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think that just in this short conversation that you and I had, my first statement, your statement, that it points to what I'm simply trying to say, that just by not naming all policies of President Trump underwater, that and just saying, again, what you touched on, what we've always supported, right? Because I've been on the steps of the Capitol as well in Sacramento, the 3-day March for Water, all that. All right, we've all been a part of that. And so to keep it simple, I like the language. If you go to page 18 under community development, where they touch on water, it says support any legislation that increases water to Kings County, as well as support reservoir infrastructure projects that help increase water supply and water management in Kings County. And to me, I believe that's how we've always said it. And when you look at,
So with that, there's 2 types of water.
yes,
So the bylaw thing is a whole separate type of water. You need both languages in it.
I get that. I get that. I'm looking for a simple umbrella, meaning this is new language. So we've never had President Biden or President Obama printed like that. It's not if
The title of the Trump name out of it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Hold on, young man. Hold on.
Sorry.
Let me finish the discussion with the chairman. Yes, sir. Yeah, I do. But and keeping in agreement, I think we still agree with what theoretically he's trying to do. But because we didn't have Biden, if we had Biden, it would be here and stricken out.
We're speaking of Senate now, so we were just dealing with administration. So
Yeah.
if we could just put the administration in there, current administration instead of an actual name, so we don't cause diversity in our community, it'd probably be better.
That's, I'm saying we don't even need to do that, because to go on to the point, I'm saying that causes confusion, right? Because going to the point where you and I just talked about what happened over the weekend with the opening of the dams and the water. Like hearing you talk, you're saying maybe Army Corps engineers did it. The press is saying, and I'm not saying that everything in the press is true, right? The media is true, but there's headlines on, President Trump's claiming victory for winning the water wars. I believe he even put out a statement on his social media platform that he won the water war against California by doing what he did. So again, yeah, we've always marched, said, build more dams, release the water. I mean, I have a T-shirt still that says "Turn on the pumps," and yeah. Well, that Mario Santoyo design those, but hey, it was a free T-shirt. But that being said, I think that the confusion is still there. Okay, so between me and you right now, I don't know who ordered the release of the water then. And again, it goes back to on conservative talk show yesterday, radio listening, they can't figure it out either. And that's all that I'm saying. Let's keep it simple. I think we all support turning the pumps on more, sending more water here so we can keep agriculture strong, and that we don't need to tie it in an open blank check to any president who has the ability to change their mind on anything on any current day, and then we're stuck and we're attached to it. That's what I would like because our legislative priorities is for all the county, Kings County folks. And I would appreciate keeping that language open, like the way community development, I believe, did a good job on that.
And I think Paul Yoder's online now. He could probably help us with some, do it well with our fellow neighboring county that are doing the same thing. So.
And I know this young man had something to offer. Sorry,
sir.
No, please, no, I apologize, sir. I just wanted to provide a clarification. The Trump BIOPS was in a previous iteration of the platform in years past. What was specifically added this year was just restructuring the sentence. So the content of support for the Trump BIOPS opinion has been a factor of the county's platform in the past. However, administration would be more than happy to take what you've shared today into consideration and draft revised language.
Okay, thank you. And we have a hand raised by Mr. Joe Cron. Morning, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just thank you for the opportunity to chime in. Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, associate myself with Alex's comments. And I think I would suggest for purposes of a legislative platform, it does resonate with me, having worked on platforms for many years, to keep language more generic in the spirit of what Supervisor Valley is saying. I think if you have a signal that you're going to support federal policies, whether those be legislative or administrative actions that maximize water deliveries to Kings County, I think is probably the direction that you want to go. I would also point out that there are, and I think everyone knows, California water policy is extraordinarily complex. I think the jury is still out as far as the effect of the Biden BIOPS versus the Trump administration terms first BIOPS as far as the water deliveries. Actually, if you look at the deliveries, they were pretty close to each other. Obviously, hydrology matters in that regard too. But again, I think for that reason, and again, when you look at the comparison of the two BIOPS, I think it makes sense to be more generic and support federal policies that will help Kings County. So that would be, on the federal side of things, that would be the Paragon recommendation.
Very good. I appreciate that. I know, like I said, 32 years doing this, and I'm a pretty type A personality. I speak from the heart, and I speak, very quick and short. And I was in Diane Feinstein's office one time, and she just stopped me and she says, "You need to quit using names. Just stick to the basics. Don't share names. Don't share." Just like Supervisor Bobby said, don't. You'll get further. And I changed my way I delivered it, and I went a lot further. So I appreciate your input. So thank you. Okay, we'll go into federal issues now.
Thank you. If we could please get the PowerPoint back up on screen, it would be much appreciated. While that is getting back on, I will share just some structural layout changes that have been done on the federal side. Previously, the topics of water, agricultural, natural resources were broken into their own sections, such as having a California drought resiliency category and a water category, with agricultural and natural resources priorities split between the two. This year, we combined the categories to reduce redundancy and create a more concise platform. Another structural change per the recommendation of our federal lobbyist team, Paragon, the platform now reflects a new category for homelessness and affordable housing, further reflecting the issue's importance and prioritization to the county. As an inverse to the water and ag category, this year's platform separated behavioral health and public health, providing each their own respective categories to ensure clarity and improve navigability of the platform. And then the last structural change is that throughout the platform, we removed outdated language, such as for issues that are either resolved or not as pressing as before. Moving on to the next slide, we can get into specific content. On water, agricultural, natural resources, we maintained a 2024 language at large. Throughout the platform, we reinforced support for the water storage and infrastructure investments, added new language voicing support for Pine Flat Dam raising to ensure sufficient water supply for county agricultural and other benefits. We also mirrored state language on invasive pests and land ownership transparency. On the public health piece, revisions mirrored those of the state platform with additions reflecting the IMD exclusion. In addition to that, support for severe mental illness funding and overall addressing reimbursement restrictions that make program implementation more difficult and costly for the county. On the public safety piece, additions have been made to support Kings County fire needs as those discussed on the state platform. The section also preserved previous language regarding the COPS hiring grant, adding language for body camera sustainability, maintenance, and video storage. On the probation side, we also mirrored state language platforms calls for funding for stability to meet the needs of the community. On the district attorney side, mirroring state language on VOCA and VAWA, Violence Against Women's Act, as well as elder abuse. Additionally, adding support for funding for programs that supplement expenses related to legal educational credentials. We also created new language regarding a statutory scheme preventing the transportation, sale, and possession of fentanyl. Fentanyl, as you know, is a highly addictive narcotic which risks injury or death to people who come into contact with the toxic substance. Fentanyl transportation and sales create a risk for law enforcement agents who are attempting to apprehend narcotics dealers, as well as confiscate the controlled substances that are laced with fentanyl. On the telecommunications and broadband piece, we updated language to include explicit support for broadband affordability programs, such as the Affordable Connectivity Program known as ACP, while maintaining 2024 language as a whole, as well as reaffirming support for the implementation and continued funding of the U.S. Department of Commerce's Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, also known as the BEAD program grants. Moving on to the next slide, continuing on the federal platform priorities. On the human services side, the language was largely preserved from the 2024 platform surrounding various HSA programs. We removed outdated language on COVID-19 and FEMA reimbursements, as well as added new language reinforcing the protection of public benefits, increasing their accessibility, and limiting punitive measures that reduce access for those with a legitimate claim to services. On the community development piece, Kings County language also supports affordable home insurance options to support housing rehabilitation programs and restore existing dilapidated housing to improve neighborhoods and developments. On the transportation piece, the platform incorporates a new language to address flood damage from the reemergence of the Tulare Lake and to push FEMA to support local and rural communities. There is also added new language supporting infrastructure improvements, such as an electric grid resiliency to support the increase of EV chargers entering the county. On the election side, mirroring state language, preserving support for legislation now help fund adequate elections infrastructure, as well as allowing the county to bill state and federal elections for the facilitation of their elections. On the library piece, new language was added to reflect the need for ADA improvements across county library facilities, preserving support for the Library Services Technology Act, as well as updating language on E-rate programs to include digital learning contexts. Moving on to the next slide. Further continuing the 2025 federal legislative priorities on child support services, largely mirroring the same language that was shared previously on the state platform. On the economic development piece, largely preserving 2024 language on Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, as well as adding new language to support local control and flexibility for Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act funding and programming to better serve the needs within the county's workforce. In addition to, the platform adds new language to support evolving workforces and industries, such as agribusinesses impacts that are realized due to SIGMA regulations and pre-President Trump biological opinions at the Delta, as well as adding new language to impose regionalization and preserve local control over program funding and grant initiatives. In a regionalized efforts, large counties tend to receive larger shares of funding, leaving small rural counties like Kings seeing inequitable allocations or no allocations at all. And then lastly, on economic development, adding new language to oppose unfunded mandates related to the state's implementation of their master plan for education, but supporting federal investments in apprenticeships, in-depth community assessments, and stakeholder meetings necessary before the implementation of the master plan for education. On the military and veteran services piece, it largely preserved 2024 language, New language was added to support the implementation and proper funding of the Dole Act, which would, among other things, expand economic opportunities for veterans, simplifying the veterans disability claims process, and reform services for aging veterans, and open the doors for more mental health support, as well as continuing that mirrored state language on the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs accreditation for those who are wanting to help those veterans with benefits and claim processes. On the homelessness and affordable housing piece, which is our newest category, as previously mentioned, we added language to support enhanced housing and urban development, known as HUD funding, that helps address homelessness in various aspects. These aspects represent funding to development, restore, and revitalize affordable housing, funding for low-income vouchers to subsidize rent, including supports and incentives for landlords, funding to prevent homelessness, as well as housing and social behavioral health supports for individuals experiencing homelessness, as well as adding language to support a cross-jurisdictional database to better serve the homeless population as mirrored in the state platform. And then lastly, not reflected in the slide as previously shared, there was an amendment to HR's federal language. Currently, there was no language added, but in the final draft that will be brought to your board on the 25th, we will add the following language: oppose unfunded mandates that cause undue strains on human resources departments and ways of reporting, record keeping, and overly complex or burdensome compliance requirements. Moving on to the last slide. This concludes the presentation. Staff, our lobbyists, and I are available to answer any questions you may have, as well as revise the platform per your board's direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Very good.
Briefly, Mr. Chairman, on the federal side, same comments underwater. If we could keep that general and edit that the same way on the state side. And then to go into further, see how the board feels about adding immigration as on the federal side, is a priority for the county. It's touched on, as Supervisors there pointed out, in some areas, especially under law enforcement, what's coming out of the sheriff's office. But I think that, it's obviously something that can impact us with what's going on. And I know it's a touchy subject, but I think that we could do it right without being political. I think that we could look at some great language that already exists that's put out by the Kern County Farm Bureau. I love the statement that they put out. I think we can come up with language that supports our farm worker community, but at the same time recognize what law enforcement goes through. And just like Kern County Farm Bureau pointed out, that it's important to note that that as we support farm workers and support our public safety to keep our community safe and keep bad guys off the street, that we should not put farm workers and criminals in the same sentence, because they have nothing to do with each other. Farm workers and criminals are not synonymous. And I think that's getting confused in the conversation in our part of the country because of what we all know, that the farm workers are staying home right now. In other parts right now, I've reached out to Kings County Farm Bureau. I've reached out to Boswell. I've been making calls trying to get a unified group that we could stand together with and put out a statement here in Kings County that, again, with the statement constructed right, that would not be anti-Democrat, anti-Republican, anti-President Trump. I think we know that our immigration system is broken for years, going back to many presidents, and that the citizens of United States of America, we deserve a better policy that keeps us from having experienced some of these things that we're experiencing. And I think that people are tired of the politics that immigration is being used as such a political chess piece. And so we need to fix that, because in other parts of the state, in Monterey County, where they're harvesting citrus, the fact that farm workers are staying home is creating negative impacts to that community. And so as I'm making calls right now, the farmers on the board would know this better than me, but I'm being told right now there's nothing to harvest in Kings County. Therefore, we're not I'm being told that our farm workers are working in ranches or working in the shops, and that there's nothing that we can measure right now if farm workers are staying home and crops are not being harvested. I am getting phone calls from business owners though, especially local mini marts saying, "Hey, supervisor, my farm worker customers, they're not showing up anymore. They're not stopping after work to get, a couple of tall cans of beer or soda or a sandwich, a bag of chips." And that's so I think with our argument, our local economy is being hit. Now, if what's going on right now across the country, and whether right or wrong, it is creating fear and anxiety amongst a lot of people, notably farm workers. And so in other parts, again, where they're staying home, to put that into perspective, when farm workers didn't stay home during the pandemic, especially that 2 weeks when we were all sheltering in place and not knowing what the hell was coming our way at a time when everyone was scared for a while. Okay. And all you have to do is go and look at the pictures that exist of farm workers masked up, elbow to elbow, still harvesting crops while we were at home, sheltering in place. And so a COVID pandemic can keep farm workers home, but fear and anxiety is keeping them home in parts of the state and keeping their children home from schools. And I think that it's time the county can take a look at it. We should definitely make immigration its own bullet point, and if approved by the board, to have them bring language to us when we actually vote on this, on this platform here. And hopefully by that time, maybe we could come together again with the different groups already highlighted and put out a unified statement, much like other parts of the San Joaquin Valley have done a good job of not getting into the mud and the politics of it, because we're not going to get anywhere with that. And I think we need to stand unified on something that is going to make sure that if however we get more water, it's not going to make a difference come summertime when there's crops to harvest and we don't have farm workers to pick those crops. Then we're going to be dealing with a impacted negative economy in Kings County when we're all going to have our hands full of the board, our CAO, and all of their staff and department heads. And I don't want to see that day come.
Thank you. If we're going to bring up COVID and farm workers, I am a farmer and I did use contract labor during the month of March and April. And it wasn't that they were sick or feared from COVID. They were getting paid to stay home, but they didn't want to. I went through multiple farm laborers and they would show up and they would work and they would say, well, we can make more money if we didn't work. And so they stayed home. So I had a personal experience and I had to go out there and do it myself for many weeks. And I know the sheriff would always make fun of me. He'd go by on a Sunday or Saturday evening. I'd be out there working because I could not get that farm labor. And it wasn't the fact that they were scared. It was the fact that they were getting paid to stay home. So a whole different scenario from someone that actually experienced it. So you want to challenge that? I'll bring you out there and I'll put you to work in the field and tell me if you get paid to stay home or paid to work.
I know I'm Mexican, but my days of farm work and they've all been over.
That was okay before.
We could argue that too, but I think if you Google, you'll see many pictures of farm workers working during the pandemic. I don't remember you bringing that up in real time. I wasn't here.
No, it was told that you stay home.
Oh, tell me how many board meetings.
Well, that I was out in the public.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
you can challenge me all you want.
Well, I'm not challenging.
I live the farm life, and I mean.
I'm not challenging you.
What he experienced, but I don't appreciate someone telling me what I experienced, what I do. This is what I do.
I didn't tell you what you experienced. You made your comment. I made my comments. Yours is your personal comment, but it shouldn't be just because if it happened to you, it shouldn't be a general statement from you that farm workers stayed home during the pandemic.
Well, you got one phone call.
I got more than.
Okay. All right. So do we have any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, the only thing I'd like to add, maybe with that, after that discussion, we should add the H-2A program that has been a part of agriculture and guest workers for over 20 years, and highlight the importance of how that program has worked and try to talk about that.
Like Robin?
Not much, just with, I don't know why it's political to basically just enforce the existing laws that we have. And so that's what I would like to see. Crime's on the rise. I would like to do everything possible to mitigate that. And by enforcing the existing laws, I think that's helpful. In the past, things have, we've mitigated things at different times. For example, during World War II, we had the Bracero program, right? And it worked effectively. I think we imported maybe 5 million, if I'm correct, workers. It lasted from like 42 to 64. And it was one of the more effective times where when we needed labor, we imported it and it worked successfully. And the program that Supervisor Neves mentioned is also a successful program. So I just think that when we look to our history, we can find some solutions that don't have to be so adversarial.
Thank you. Right there.
Oh, I don't know. I just want to maybe clarify my thing. When I'm talking about the sanctuary state, that aspect, I'm talking about illegal border crossers who are committing crimes in our communities that we've arrested time after time, book in our jail, and then we cannot cooperate with federal authorities to turn them over to ICE officials. There's a whole matrix on what you can and what you can't report. So when I'm talking about that is what I'm talking about. I'm not so worried about, because I've worked in these communities down in Corcoran, out in Avenel, Kettleman City, and I know that there's people that are here that have crossed illegally, but they're not committing crimes in our communities. And for that spectrum, my fear for them, when I say that there's consequences, my fear is for those folks, the 4 or 5 who are here, who are not criminals, have never committed a crime. They're working their backsides off, but they're with somebody that is targeted by law enforcement, not California law enforcement, obviously. And then all 6 of them get wrapped up and deported. That's what I talk about. When I say consequences, that's the consequence. And it used to not be that way. Because prior to SB 54, we could cooperate with ICE officials and turn criminals. We don't want American criminals in our neighborhoods, let alone, these that are coming from other countries. So I just wanted to clarify that piece. I understand what you're saying, Supervisor Valley. I just wanted to at least explain that maybe a little bit better.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to say, Sleep there, whatever I said about criminals and farm workers not being synonymous, it wasn't with anything that you said. I agreed with the statement that you made under the state side. And again, I've had a few phone calls with Sheriff Robinson, and I understand the frustration. I understand the frustration of simple legislation that would help with things that you just pointed out. As it relates to ICE, can't even make it out of a subcommittee to go on the floor of the Assembly or the Senate for a vote that it would just start. And I think that's part of an issue there too. But there's nothing that you said that stemmed any of my conversation. My conversation comes from sitting back, watching everything go down, and I haven't made a public statement because again, I wanted to do it in a unified way, so there wouldn't be anything of what's like already happened with me and the chairman. Was trying to have a gentleman conversation, and obviously, just like the whole country right now, people operating in the red. It's not easy to have that conversation, right? And we're not trying to bump heads up here, me and the chairman, but it goes to the point that this is an issue that I would think it's timely that you draft some language and make, just like Steve Neves had an idea under that headline too, that the board could review prior to going to vote on this package and see if the board wants to make immigration a platform forward.
Yeah, and look at the language from Kern County Farm Bureau, talk to our local farm bureau and see if it lines up with our thoughts.
That's a pretty good statement right there.
Yeah, we'll see. There's a lot happening right now, kind of a lull. We're doing some line pruning, not a lot of fishing in King County. But when we start harvesting the cherry, that will see the impact if we ask before.
Let me feel your hands. You got calluses on the sleeve. Yeah, this is smooth as a baby's bottom.
Yeah, there, buddy. So yeah, we'll see. Well, by the end of May, we'll know if it's serious or not, if it becomes a farm labor. So
Yeah.
that's all. And
You don't want to get there.
I think we'll be okay. Okay, do we have any questions before we're all done? Do we have any questions from the audience? Anybody else?
Yes.
Matthew.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Matthew Boyd, Deputy County Administrative Officer, Kings County Administration. Nothing to add for the conversation. I just up here, I just want to extend a huge bit of thanks here to Alex. Without his efforts, none of this would have been brought before you today. So he did a lot of heavy lifting there. So thank you very much for doing that. And also to the department heads for all of their time and input. It's been a lot of meetings over the last 3 months, and your board that also participated as well. And again, a big, huge thanks to our federal and state lobbyists, Paragon and Shaw Yoder Ranchers, and to Schmelzer and Lang, for with all these efforts here. Would not have been possible without everybody's collaboration. So again, to all of our county folks, thank you all very much, and look forward to bringing this back later this month. So thank you.
Thank you. I asked, there's no question in the audience, right? Anybody else? Supervisor Peterson? You want to go now or you want to go?
Comment been appropriately.
Hang on. You have to stay at the microphone. But we'll start with, you want to go first? Come. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Red Fidiasi. I have to give my address. Is that what you said?
Yeah, if you have a question, go ahead.
What exactly does the current president's view on gender, how does that impact our water? Like, depending on how many people of what gender do we get more water? Or like, how does that impact our water at all?
We'll have to take that question under consideration and get out to our department head to see how they answer it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Again,
Yeah, that's where your statement comes. Yeah.
Well, good morning, board.
Please state your name and address. For
Craig Peterson, Lemoore, recovering supervisor. Been a great discussion this morning. When I think about where we're at today, we got here through compromise, right? And for many of us, that compromise has gone one way. I think a week ago, 2 of you took and swore an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States. And, we've compromised that position through whatever purposes. We've compromised it so terribly that now, members of our community that have lived here most of our lives, that some use the system, they can't access the system, or there's no funding for them because of this massive migration. And it's all because we're unwilling to enforce the laws of the United States. So I just remind you that you all took the oath to uphold the Constitution, and doing otherwise violates that oath. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I just want to say I took that same oath when I sworn to 6 years in the United States Marine Corps to uphold the Constitution, protect the United States of America. And so, and I've been doing that for the last 17 years as well.
Your hands got up the soft. Okay, this is just a study session. We'll bring it back in 2 weeks and vote on it before we head to Washington, D.C. I want to thank our lobbyists for being online and everybody for sharing their thoughts and ideas. And we'll move on now to board member announcements and reports. We'll start with Supervisor Neves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Wednesday, January 29th, the King's Waste and Recycling meeting held its monthly meeting. Welcomed Robert Thayer to the board, also elected Mark Kyrus as the chair and Robert as vice chair. Reviewed all of the documents and getting ready. We're about halfway through our fiscal year and looking to prepare the spending plan for 25-26. Came back to the complex and held the kickoff first meeting of the staff appreciation barbecue. Costs have increased quite a bit, and I hate to stand here and say, but we may have to look at that budget a little bit if we're going to continue that operation. I know this is not the opportunity to bring it up, but just let the CA know that we might have to do a budget adjustment in order to pull that event off, even if we stay with the tacos or we looking for other meal options. Just the price of everything is just skyrocketing. Continue to announce basketball at Lamar College. And then last night, want to thank Richard Fagundes and Jim Kilner helping out with the fire.
Thanks, Supervisor. Supervisor Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Nev said, Wednesday, I attended my first Kings Recycle Authority meeting and then came here for this employee appreciation barbecue. On Thursday, I had the opportunity, I think I mentioned it at the last board meeting that I'd reached out to Public Works on the Houston Bridge project. And Thursday, Mitchell back here, along with Jim Henderson and some others, brought together the consultants that the county's hired on that project. And so and invited Supervisor Robinson. I know he spoke up last week too, so thanks for being on that. The reality is that you go away from this meeting basically with this is absolutely unacceptable what is occurring out there on Houston Avenue and that bridge and the dynamics. If you ever want to see the brake on the wheel of progress, experience going through a construction project with the state of California and federal authorities, and that's what's happening in this sense. And sadly, you could see on the Zoom screen when Supervisor Robinson fell out of his chair when we got a date. I think it was January of 2027. That's not a typo. 2 years for the beginning of potential construction, and he's taken a deep breath, and I've been doing that all weekend long. Anyway, kind of on a side note with this, I had a phone call from a constituent yesterday that lives out there at 6th in Houston that's still very frustrated by the entirety of this process, and it's no knock back onto the employees that are currently employed with the county, but having conversation with them. I was as transparent with them as I could possibly be, which I don't know why we're in the position that we're in, other than that there's some of us that are putting a lot of irons in some fire trying to get some movement on this project. And so with that, I wanted to say that to our community, those that are here in this room and those who are listening, that there are some folks who are working, that the answers that we got the other day, Rusty can speak on his own behalf, but for me, it's just not acceptable. Then Friday, I attended along with Verboon, Congressman Valadeo and Fong hosted a human trafficking consortium, I guess. I don't know what other kind of word to describe it. Their multi-purpose room was packed with community groups and others that are scattered throughout the central San Joaquin Valley on dealing with human trafficking. And there were a handful of people in there who have lived experience. Listening to their testimony is heartbreaking. I know last week we did a resolution, this board did, on our support to fight human trafficking, but nevertheless, Friday was there doing that. And then Friday, we were talking about this release of water from the dams, and I don't know how I got chosen, but I answered the phone call. I answered my phone, and the person on the other end happened to be a reporter with the New York Times that apparently she still had my contact information from the floods, and she was asking me about this Trump order, and I didn't know if it was a Trump order. I mean, nothing within our county had said that this was an order from the president to release water. But anyway, I tried to help cooperate and connect her with people who could give her answers. And I think that then led to CNN reading it, because that's what I did this morning. As I got up early and came down here to the complex and did a little Zoom interview with CNN on this water. And just what you said earlier, Super Boone, that whatever water came down the mountain from Cahuilla Lake, our locals know what to do with it. They put it in the recharge basins and we can pump it back out of the ground later. But anyway, there's just, yes, I talked to CNN, and if you see that, yes, I said what I said, and you'll just have to go find the interview. And then No, it was actually, I think I think it was as well. Did you hear it? Did you listen to it yet?
I have not, but we just received the link. So if
Yeah.
board members would like it, I could forward it on.
Sure. I was proud of myself. I didn't make any facial expressions that my mother would be ashamed of. And then lastly, obviously Saturday, many of us, thank you for the text message to relay the passing of Mark Ed's captain out of the Avenel Fire Station. It was just a shot that you just don't expect to hear. And so, to our entire fire community, those are to go down like that after responding to a call for service in our communities is just sad. And anyway, just keeping his family and our entire fire community in your prayers. And other than that, that's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, pretty much everything that I want to say, I said already during the meeting, but just for the record, I do want to note again my condolences to Kings County Fire and the city of Avenel for the sorrow in that community as well due to his untimely passing. But I think it just reiterates and highlights what our firefighters go through, and that when that call happens, they automatically heart rates go up, blood pressures go up, just like with our sheriff deputies and our police officers. And so I've never rushed to a fire to the scene of a really bad crime, but I think if we try to put ourselves in their shoes, at what they experience multiple times a day, getting the calls and the anxiety and the tension they have on the way to the call. All that just goes through what I hope we're trying to do, and I think we're trying to do at Kings County, which is to prioritize our public safety, men and women in uniform, and our firefighters, and do what we can to make sure that they have that solid pay that they deserve, and we keep those personal challenges in mind, when we're in negotiations, because I would never want that to get lost. And I don't think that we do, but when you have something like this happen, I think we should try to keep that memory as we go about, and we're hearing from our men and women in uniform. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
First, my condolences to the Eads family. That was hard to do. And thank you to the fire department for everything. Sorry. And thank you to the fire department for everything that they do. Last Thursday, Supervisor Thayer and I were on a Zoom meeting with Public Works. And though I appreciate the efforts of Jim, the efforts of Mitchell, and they do great work. I wish I had that hour back, to be honest with you. It was frustrating. In recent weeks, the date for the Houston Bridge, I think, was January 2026. And so the update was January 2027. And the rationale is environmental, and basically environmental hoops. And then we have to wait for review, and then we have to then address those things. And so the questions ranged, my questions at least, from, how is it Florida can fix a bridge in a month? And I think the answer was, I don't know. I don't work in Florida. The other thing is, why do we prioritize, dead dinosaurs and environmental species when if one of our residents on the other side of the bridge has a heart attack and needs EMS to respond promptly? Also, wasn't that already addressed when we built the bridge before? Some of these environmental concerns. At any rate, anything that we can do, whether on the critical path, because I think this morning they sent over the critical path so we can see what they're doing as they're doing it. But any of these things that can overlay to save time, we would greatly appreciate it. I just think it's unacceptable for this thing, because eventually that puts us at about 4 years. So enough on that. Also on Thursday, I was on a Zoom meeting with RCRC, which is our rural counties, and their legislative updates. Thursday evening, attended a reception with Supervisor Verboon for Allie Macedo in Tulare. Nice reception. Good luck to Allie. And then on Friday, attended her swearing in ceremony
in Tulare, which was hosted by Connie Conway and Speaker Trace Gallagher. So I think she's on her way to great things, and she looks like she's a part-time Fox girl now. So that should be interesting. Yesterday, lots of phone calls with the DA, the sheriff, councilman regarding the major crime unit in the city of Hanford. I love the study session idea for us. I encourage a study session for the city council this evening. And I would also urge Chief Huddleston to reconsider her position. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. This time we'll move on now to Gary Martinez, board correspondent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the board received correspondence from the Fire Department OES regarding a operational area report dated January 31st. Board received correspondence dated January 29th from the Kettleman City Community Service District regarding a reserve fund drawdown. For upcoming events, Kings County Behavioral Health will host its mental health family member support group tonight from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. here on site. Behavioral Health will host its Survivor of Suicide Loss support group tomorrow, Wednesday, February 5th from 5:30 to 7:30, again here on campus. Kings County Library will host its Cup of Joe and Conversations with Veterans next Monday, February 10th from 9:30 to 11:30 at the Corcoran Branch Library. Kings County Behavioral Health will host its Veteran Support Group next Tuesday, February 11th from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Veterans Memorial Hall in Hanford. Kings County Library will host its movie time at the library next Wednesday, February 12th from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Kettleman City Branch Library. And lastly, Kings County is hosting a county-only benefits and counseling session to all county employees. It will take place tomorrow, Wednesday, February 5th from 9 to 10:45 or 3 to 4:45 p.m. It's going to be in conjunction with our EAP benefits that we provide to county employees and our behavioral health department. Again, that is going to be open to county employees only, and it's in regards to the passing of our county employees. So that is open to county employees tomorrow, and Thursday there will be a morning session from 9 to 10:45 a.m. If there are any questions, an email was sent out to all county employees yesterday. For upcoming agenda items. So we are dark for the next two board meetings. So the next board meeting will be February 25th. Administration has 3 items: the public safety realignment, community supervision plan, the adoption of the legislative platform, appointments of the Law Library Board of Trustees. District Attorney has 1 item regards to some additional grant funds. Health has an item regarding the appointment to the Kings County Ambulance Commission. Human Resources has a new classification for Behavioral Health Department. HCA has an item on some prevention program grant funding. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good question, Mr. Chair. Catherine, or the clerk, sent the email in regards to the Kettleman City request for the drawdown, but I can't tell, are they staying on budget with that request, or are they asking for above and beyond?
They're asking, I believe, their standard drawdown.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll move into closed session as outlined. Before we go to closed session, we will stay here at 11 o'clock and do our California Public Finance Reporting. Thank you very much. See you in 2 weeks.
We don't know about that. You too? How are you? I have. Okay. I apologize. Yeah, I apologize. I already have what anybody. And the come around to our office, and I will manage the next.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I'll be on with you.
He said he know how to crack eggs
All right.
without the shells. Put the shells in.
I certainly, come on through. I see budget. I am.
Thank you.
How are you? We got 22 babies, so they're at a high rate. Yeah. We can take a picture. I just thought we put us. Thank you.